Good morning. Welcome to the morning show with yours truly, Dex the Algo Capitalist. I hope you had a good night's sleep. It's time to get to work. And we do have some work getting done in these markets. I got to tell you, if you are a subscriber to the Pulse Waves, you are a happy camper this morning. That's right. If you are one of our subscribing members and you receive attack reports, you woke up this morning with a little surprise because the shock is that the US dollar index is down 63 pips, trading at 104.38. Therefore, the euro is up 51 pips at 108.87. Not long behind is the pound sterling up 80 pips at 126.72. And the Aussie finally has broken out and is up 62 pips at 66.93, the new high of the session. But the bigger news, or I should say the biggest of them all, is the key reversal in Bitcoin. That's right. Bitcoin futures are up $3,570 this morning, trading at 65,405, just a few ticks off of the morning high of 65,500. This is why I like the attack reports, because even if you are wrong in your guesstimation of market direction, you can still be put on the right side of the market and capitalize. Imagine getting paid to be wrong in the market. That's what the attack reports will do for you. Ethereum this morning's up $104.50 at $3,005.50. Key reversal here too. Who knew? Who would have thought it, right? Well, still not out of the woods yet per se, but this is a pretty interesting development to say the least. We'll see where the market goes from here. You never know. There are times where the market may have a different mindset and wants to do something else. Ethereum, believe it or not, is really not pulse waving positive this morning. Not like Bitcoin is. Bitcoin is really moving this morning. It's pulse waving positive in a big way. So we'll see if Ethereum can get its act together and do a little something or not. We'll see. It seems that there is that they're starting to move away from each other temporarily, which is normally not how they work, but these are different times, right? Gold futures are up $28.50 this morning per ounce, trading at $2,388.60 per ounce. And it is pulse waving positive today, as you will notice on your reports. Silver, not to be outdone, up 87 cents this morning, trading at $29.57 per ounce. Now, this one is pulse waving positive this morning as well. Then you have nat gas unchanged, crude oil up 17 cents per barrel, trading at $78.20 a barrel. Dow futures up 257 points, trading at 39,934, getting close to breaking that 40K mark. Can the Dow break 40K today? That is the question. It's going to be very interesting to see if it can do it, because it's just within reach. It's not too far away from the all-time highs. E-mini S&P 500 at 46 points this morning, trading at 53.15 and a quarter, and it's not far away from breaking out and taking out its new 52-week high. Then you have the E-mini NASDAQ 100 futures, which is up 183 and three-quarter points, trading at 18,598 and a quarter. This should be noted that it is not far away from taking out its all-time highs either. All right. So interesting turn of events. Then your Russell. Now the Russell still has a little ways to go, but it's not too far off of taking out its all-time highs. Right now, the Russell My Hustle is up 22 points at 2,116.90. Excuse me. So all the stock indices, all four, are post-waving positive this morning. And I think that this is what is to be expected out of the last several CPIs that came out. It caused the market to rally. So the question is, where do we go from here? Well, bond futures right now in the long bond is up a full point plus 530 seconds, trading at 117 and 30 seconds. And then the TLT, which is the long bond ETF, is up $1.11 right now, trading at $91.97 per share. So very interesting spark of activity today, which is what I was counting on, that the CPI would really give that market a boost that it was looking for. Now, there is so much to talk about. There's so many different things happening right now. And you have to kind of like break things down because it's so many things happening at once. Now, we've been talking about the rise of global tyranny. If I had to put it into a category, I would say that's what we have been really talking about, and how it's being presented, or how it's presenting itself to the masses. Okay. And what we have noticed is that for the most part, the American people have been so thoroughly, in my humble opinion, brainwashed that they don't even see it coming anymore. It used to be that, political commentators would be able to tell the truth and shame the devil. But that doesn't seem to be happening anymore because of censorship. Censorship is like out of control right now. Okay. And it doesn't seem to be anything that anyone can do about it. At least they lack the, how can I say this? They lack the wherewithal to want to do it. They lack the stones. They lack the willpower, all right, to want to do this. And I just don't really know why that is. The only thing I can ascertain from it is that the level of briefcase that people are being hit upside the head with must be extremely compelling to make people go against their own morals and things of that nature. So, from where I'm sitting, it would have to be quite substantial. And we know that the Fed has been slinging stimulus like flapjacks all over the place for the past several years. So, this too is nothing new. And it was the wrestler Ted DiBiase back from the WWF days of the 1980s that said, every man has his price. That was his thing. Every man has his price. Ted DiBiase, the $1 Million Man. And one of his antics would be to come out with a briefcase into the wrestling ring and open it up, and of course people would always get bought off. It was hilarious. I like the way the writing, in my opinion, was a lot better in the 80s, because the WWF, WWE is scripted. It's like, it's like live action soap opera, basically. But it's extremely entertaining. And I think the 80s writing was just on another level because it was hilarious, the things that would happen. And that's what we are today. Every man has his price. Every man has his price. And politicians are no different. They're getting large kickbacks and under the table payments, and you know things set up for them when they leave office, and all these things. And I'm an equal opportunity person, meaning that if you're going to do this, make sure it's an even playing field for everybody. If the government wants to continue to be corrupt, then let the corruption flow down to the little man too. Because isn't that what the whole fairness doctrine's about? Everything has to be fair, everything has to be equitable. But is it fair and equitable when you leave people out? No, it's not. What about inclusion? All this talk about inclusions. Inclusion this, inclusion that. Well, include everybody. If you're going to be a snake, shouldn't you slither in all the grass and not just the grass that's the tallest? So I'm just saying, we don't have that though. We have mind control, and one of the tenets of the mind control that is being used on the masses, believe it or not, is censorship. Censorship is a form of mind control because you're not just filtering out information, but it's specific information that's being filtered out. They don't want you to get facts or truth that go against their narrative. Anything that is against the narrative is deemed to be a threat. So you can be classified as a political enemy of the state, and they can even put labels on you such as terrorist or conspiracy theorist. Now, see, conspiracy theorist means you are a nut, a fruitcake, someone that should not be taken seriously. All right. So ignore this person. Let's laugh at this person. We're not going to analyze what they're saying or do any fact checking or research. Oh, no, 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 no. We're just going to say they are a nut. So don't listen to them. And if that doesn't work, then that's when they have to really turn you into an evil person. So if turning you into a clown, excuse me, is not effective, then they have to turn you into a villain. So they'll say you are pulling babies out of incubators. They'll say you are using chemical biological weapons on your citizenry. They'll say you're throwing people into gulags and re-education camps or FEMA camps or whatever camp you want to say. All right. Camp Lost in the Woods, Missouri, whatever. You got to demonize them. You got to say this person is a tyrant and they need to be stopped. So you demonize them, and you use your strongest weapon of demonization, and that is the mainstream media. Because the mainstream media has a script that they talk from. They use the same script, word for word. Whatever the topic be, word for word is coming out of there. And they all take the same stance. They're keeping to the narrative. If the government says that it is snowing in the middle of August, and you look out the window and you don't see any snow, and you speak out and say it's not snowing, you are now an enemy of the state. How dare you go against the state? How dare you? And then they will come and smear you in the media, on all media platforms, not just the television or radio. You're going to be taken out in all the social media and deplatformed and censored. Even though, actually, technically, it's not snowing. Everyone will look outside and say, yes, it is. Where I live, we got 6 inches. knowing full well there's no snow outside, but they dare not speak against the establishment, lest they too get demonetized, lest they too lose their platform. No one wants that. So they go along to get along. And then the establishment will parade in front of you all of these doctors and scientists and meteorologists who will give you 15 different reasons why it is snowing outside. And they will even come up with a spin to explain why some people don't see the snow and therefore can't experience the snow. And they'll say you have a mental condition, and they may say you have snowitis. Or if that doesn't work, they may get bold and just say you're a racist, and they'll say it's scientifically proven. We have research now that says that racists will not be able to experience snow in July or August, even though it's a foot of snow outside. And everyone will believe that narrative because it'll be repeated over and over and over again until the people are thoroughly hypnotized. And then they start saying it. So now the people are running with the narrative on their own because they've been thoroughly brainwashed. That's right. More on that in a moment. But first, AI, AI, AI. And no, I'm not talking about the movie AI. No, I'm not talking about the answer, Allen Iverson. Nope, not talking about Allen Iverson. We're talking about artificial intelligence. And yeah, Chat GPT is still all the rage. And now Google I/O, which is the tech giant's biggest developer conference, was heavy on the rise of so-called AI agents. Now, Google CEO Sundar Pichai said AI agents think multiple steps ahead and work across software and systems, all to get something done on your behalf, and most importantly, with your supervision. Now, Tuesday's event wasn't just about the new and shiny. Google's faithful old search engine got a noticeable facelift with the help of AI. Now, AI overviews are the following. The AI generated answers at the top of the Google search results combines what previously would have been a bunch of steps to answer a complex question into a single search. But what's good for the user could spell trouble for the rest of the internet. That type of feature could upend businesses built around search engine optimization. Now, at the center of this movement sits Project Astra, which is what Hugh succinctly describes as what the Google Assistant should have been all along. Now, if you put this into perspective, what is happening and what is being done is the way we Google search now. You type in what you're looking for, and then a bunch of links will come up for you to browse through and then click and go through. They want to replace links now. No more internet web links, but instead, the AI will just give you the information that you want. Basically, imagine the internet search engine turning into Cliff Notes. That's what they want to turn search engines into. Cliff Notes. I want to look up. I'm doing research on elephants, so then it'll pull up things on elephants. So basically, you have a Cliff Notes meets Wikipedia, and that's what they want to turn it into. So there's no more clicking links. Whatever the subject is, the AI is going to create a narrative for you by pulling from various sources and put it into a concise paragraph for you, basically. Is what it's boiling down to in the simplest terms. This is absolutely abysmal. They've already taken the internet from you. How many times do you have to see demonstrations and see videos of people showing you how information on the internet is being hidden from you? and kept from you. It's gotten to the point where if you don't have the direct link to go directly to where you want to go, you're never going to be able to get that link. You're never going to find it. They've turned the regular internet into the deep, dark web, meaning that without a web address, you're not going anywhere except for being held hostage at the gate of the AI. The AI now is the gatekeeper of information. You will never get links anymore to various websites. Only the information, and that information will be thoroughly sanitized and redacted before given to you. That is how the brainwashing of the entire world will be complete. This is the last step. So not only will the internet start reinforcing what you're hearing in the mainstream media, but it's going to help to solidify the brainwashing. I want you to think about this for a minute. All the talking points, whatever the narrative in the mainstream media, being backed up by your internet search results. No escape, right? It must be factual because I Googled it and the AI came up and is saying the same thing they just said that the news anchor woman just said on the 5 o'clock news. So it must be so. And I'm saying, no, no, no. It's not so. It's actually not so. That's where the world has gone. Now, there are different methods, and we've talked about that in the beginning here, of how they go about doing this. So now we're gonna look at another example, and this is a very real life example because it's happening right before our eyes. And that's the smearing of the enemy. And that's a typical US info op or psyop. So here's an example of a fairly typical US information operation, because that's what it is. And let's take a look at how the US is using information operation, psychological propaganda, and manipulation against China. Now, on April the 20th, the New York Times, in collaboration with some German media, came up with this sensational headline. Top Chinese swimmers tested positive for banned drug, then won Olympic gold. All right, that's the heading in the New York Times. China's own doping agency had detected tiny amounts of banned drugs in some athletes of its swimming team. It informed, as it should do, the World Anti-Doping Agency, or WADA, and started to investigate the case. China acknowledged the positive test in a report by its anti-doping regulator, saying that the swimmers had ingested the banned substance unwittingly and in tiny amounts, and that no action against them was warranted. But an examination by the New York Times found that the previously unreported episode sharply divided the anti-doping world, where China's record has long been a flashpoint. American officials and other experts said the swimmers should have been suspended or publicly identified pending further investigation, and they suggested that the failure to do so rested with Chinese sports officials, Swimming International Government Body, World Aquatics, and the World Anti-Doping Agency, the global authority that oversees national drug testing programs. Even after the other national and international anti-doping officials repeatedly provided the global regulator known as WADA or WADA with intelligence suggesting a cover-up and doping by Chinese swimmers, the agency chose not to try to hold the athletes accountable, asserting a lack of any credible evidence to challenge China's version of events. WADA defended its decision not to take action, calling the criticism unsubstantiated. These Chinese anti-doping agency, as well as WADA, handled the case by the book. There was a plausible explanation of a food contamination with tiny amounts of the drug during a swimming event in China. No other tests before and after that event had been positive. The amount of drugs involved was too tiny to make a difference. WADA did not put out a public notice about the incident as no further action was required. No athletes were publicly shamed, and shamed as none had been proven to be guilty. But that did not fit the U.S. messaging agenda that was designed to defame China. Thus, other headlines in the usual Western propaganda media were followed up. Here's the one from The Guardian. U.S. anti-doping agency attacks WADA's half-truths over Chinese swimmers. How about the Daily Mail? Adam Peaty slams cover-up of systemic doping by Chinese swimmers. And here's Mail Online. Lawyer for banned Aussie swimmer Shayna Jack outraged by Chinese Olympic drug scandal. And then here's the Times. China to send 13 swimmers under doping cloud to Paris Olympics. That's right, folks. These are real headlines. In a long press conference video, WADA went public to defend itself. It had done all it was supposed to do in that case. WADA says it is astonished by completely false, defamatory remarks by the USADA chief in case of Chinese swimmers, according to the Global Times. Now, a fairly neutral report on the issue came out in support of WADA, and this is in the conservation. Chinese swimming scandal, a strong defense by World Anti-Doping Body, but narrative of cover-up remains. See the smear campaigns, folks? See how they do? This is what the U.S. government does. This is what the mainstream media does. But see, transparency is key to any organization's reputation. It is never a good look when a body like WADA is forced to respond to a story exposed by the mainstream media, in this case, a German documentary and a New York Times report. Now, WADA was surely suffered a reputational damage by not being open about the case when it unfolded 3 years ago, but it maintains it couldn't have handled the situation differently because of the complexity of the global anti-doping framework between the WADA, WADA, and national anti-doping agencies. It wasn't up to WADA to make the details of the failed test public. This responsibility rested with the China Anti-Doping Agency because it had carried out the test and investigated the positive results. To protect innocent athletes, if no violation is found, no public announcement is required. Given an investigation by the Chinese Ministry of Public Security found traces of the banned substance trimetazine, or TMZ, in a kitchen at the swimmer's hotel, the China ADA ruled the positive tests were the result of accidental contamination. The Chinese swimmers were cleared without any public announcement. Far from accepting the China ADA's filings on the face of it, the WADA requested the entire case file so it could conduct its own scientific and legal investigations, including speaking with the drug manufacturer to get the latest unpublished science on TMZ and comparing the Chinese positive tests with TMZ cases in other countries, including the US. The WADA ultimately determined there was no concrete evidence to disprove the possibility of environmental contamination. Now, the damage, though, due to the sensational U.S. information operation has already been done. So was the WADA succeeded in changing the narrative? Probably not. Why? Because putting the words China and the word doping together is a lightning rod in the current political climate, given the intense rivalry between the U.S. and China. Currently, there are 23 people serving anti-doping suspensions in Australia. Do we feel personal or national shame for their wrongdoing? Every time the U.S. team marches into an Olympic Games or steps up onto a world championship medal podium, Did we point at them while recalling memories of the U.S. Postal Service cycling team and the Band for Life cyclist Lance Armstrong? But when it comes to China, many observers are quick to name and shame athletes, viewing every news story as some kind of proof the country must have a systemic state sanctioned doping program. And that, dear friends, was the sole purpose of this nonsense. As the next Summer Olympics will soon begin, we can expect to see more propaganda. Now, this is just the door of the rabbit hole. Now, I'm going to take you down into it. Are you ready? There's a reason why America cannot have nice things. And it's not because Americans can't afford nice things. No, no, no. On the contrary, it's because of greed, conspiracy, and corruption. And we're going to prove that now. Now, we just finished talking about how the US government weaponizes the media against its enemies or anyone perceived to be a threat, whether they be a US citizen or a foreign government. But did you know that according to media reports, the Biden administration is planning to announce a 100% tariff on imports of Chinese electric vehicles? You heard me right. A 100% tariff. Now, the president needs to nail down the union vote and protect his right flank from weak on China accusations before November. So now you have the backdrop as to why this is happening. Now, EV tariffs are a cheap solution to both problems. Americans won't feel a thing. China exports a negligible amount of cars to the US, right? So, nothing to see here, right? Fat, stupid, and happy American life will carry on as if nothing happened. The average price, in the meanwhile, of a new vehicle in the United States is around $48,000, more than what half of Americans make in a year. In the Ford F 150 lineup, that's a mid range XLT variant. It's a Toyota Crown in mid level nightshade trim. And it's a Tesla Model 3 with the long range dual motor all wheel drive package. These are all commendable vehicles, and Americans should be the envy of the world for having such excellent motor choices, right? No, wrong. No, they should not. Compared to what's now offered in China, Americans are paying outrageous prices for absolute lemons in comparison. The $40,000 Chinese buyers can get a top of the line Tesla Model S equivalent dual motor four wheel drive Han. Did you know that? That's right. Hyundai cut prices on its Sonata sedan from $42,000 to $17,000. And for $11,000, Chinese consumers can buy a BYD Chen plug-in hybrid for less than a half the US price of Toyota's equivalent Corolla hybrid. Less than half the price, folks. Biden's saving grace is not that most Americans do not know that they don't have nice things. Few Americans lament the lack of high speed rail. How can you miss what you never possessed? If you never experience 300 megabytes per second download speeds, you won't question AT&T's marketing of 100 megabytes as 5G. If every student goes $40,000 into debt to pay for college, it's not considered a burden on America's young. New York City subway has always been like that. And if Chinese EVs are not available in the US, people will continue to buy $40,000 dog piles and like it. Now, of course, the pretense can't go on forever. There are intelligent, well traveled people in America who know what goes on in other parts of the world, but unfortunately, they haven't had much success bringing those nice things back home to America. For decades, China has systematically onshored the best the world has to offer, while still missing a few key pieces, cutting edge chip fabs and commercial airplanes. The systematic process has been a spectacular success. Cargo cults were religious movements in the Pacific Melanesia where members aped the behavior of advanced societies in hopes of summoning valuable cargo to their islands. Now, this sometimes involved the construction of elaborate but comical copies of advanced technology and infrastructure like wooden airplanes and mock landing strips, which always failed to achieve the desired effect. Somewhere in the San Joaquin Valley of California sits a 1,600-foot of recently completed high speed rail track with the California High Speed Rail Authority proudly christened the Fresno River Viaduct. It took 9 years to build and somehow cost $11 billion. 2 years after Congress allocated $7.5 billion to build 500,000 EV charging stations, seven have been completed. TSMC's Arizona chip fab has come and been called a debacle by media outlet Rest of the World, rife with employee dissension, make work and high turnover. According to the Wall Street Journal, the Pentagon has sent thousands of military grade drones to Ukraine only for them to be rejected in favor of cheaper and more reliable off the shelf models from guess where? China. Every naval strategist is advocating for a whole of government effort to revitalize American shipbuilding, whose capacity has fallen to 0.4% of China's. There are a lot of eggheads running around Washington these days advocating for this, but this is across the political spectrum from clean energy to military industrial base WOGEs to science and technology ones to education reform ones. All are the rage and have been assigned magical properties by their advocates. Now, anthropologists now dismiss the clownish cargo cult conceptualization as reductive. Traditional island cultures were crashing up against modern technology, resulting in wrenching change and societal upheaval that only sometimes express themselves in comical ways. Island societies were long led by big men who set agendas, doled out resources, and settled disputes. Men who could not reciprocate in these social relations were considered rubbish men. When the modern world came crashing in with their cargo, island big men and all the favors they previously dispensed plummeted in value, making rubbish men of entire societies. Now, social entrepreneurs merged, promising to summon valuable cargo, return the island to previous golden age, and or restore traditional morality. The silly airplanes, landing strips, and control towers were a minor part of the movement, and that kind of derogatorily hyped the Western snickering. Now, ultimately, cargo cults were attempting to establish new political relationships and hierarchies in societies appended by sudden contact with the modern world. Now, Han Feets, the has some sympathy for the California High Speed Rail Authority and the Washington WOGE activists on a sociological level. How different, after all, are cargo cults from the Zing Dynasty boxers who waged a heroic but futile rebellion against foreign occupiers? Well, sympathy cannot, however, override the fact that cargo cults were a blind ally for the Melanesians as they tried to fumble their way around towards joining the modern world, just as the Boxer Rebellion made things worse for the Qing dynasty. So a budget and a mandate is as useless for building high-speed rail as thatch and wood airplane is for delivering cargo if the commission responsible refuses to help experts in the field. So just as transitioning America to clean energy isn't made easier by blocking the lowest cost and most advanced products from American markets, but that's what we have going on here. Culture war has spilled over into political war and financial warfare and smearing campaigns and all types of silly tariffs, and they keep stabbing the global economy every time they do that. They already decimated it with all the lockdowns in the early 2020s, and now we have this on top of that. And then they want to also raise taxes on investment proceeds. Absolute lunacy is happening right now. And people seem powerless to do anything and lack the willpower to do anything about this. But this is what's happening, folks. And someone has to stand up and put a stop to it. Because if not, then the country is going to suffer, folks. And on the back of all of this, we talked about yesterday, they want to take away your rights. They want to set the Constitution on fire and then throw in the Bill of Rights with it. They want to set a real big bonfire. And once the Constitution is gone, so are your rights. And one of the biggest rights they want to take away, because they know everything hinges on this: private property. Everything hinges on private property. Everything. There is no prosperity without private property. So to say you will own nothing and be happy, they're saying you will have no prosperity and be happy. You will become a slave to the state and be happy. More on that in our next morning show, God willing, tomorrow. We'll talk about why private property is so important. If you don't own anything, then you have no prosperity, and you have no rights, and you have no freedom, and you have no liberty. All right? Think about it. Remember, the system works if you work the system. Bulls make money, bears make money, and pigs get slaughtered. So remember to take what you can and give nothing back. And on that note, I'm out. Smash that like button. Do yourself a favor. Subscribe if you haven't already. And go to postwavetrading.com and sign up to receive these attack reports. They go out in the evenings after the market closes to prepare you for the next day's trading session. And with that, I'm out. Peace.